got reelected. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's the local decision they're making, and that's so it's kind of the same as going to referendum. And if your voters won't support a referendum or won't support the board using those mechanisms to make some increases by, taking, I don't know if you're taking water off your levy yet or not, fire protection water, that's an exemption that you can do if you haven't. Certainly the borrowing is that if you don't have a lot of debt service, Well,
we do. And we do utilize that.
And then that's probably not a great option for you if you have a lot of that already.
Yeah, we're almost at our debt limit.
Well, and I think a lot of
that's
it,
not going to work.
I think a lot of it becomes public knowledge. They know from, your word might get out there a lot larger than what ours does in the overall scheme of things. So you've got everyone out there going, well, there's no way they should be raising taxes, even though there might be small ways to do it. And so, they come
But if your
back.
village members really think you shouldn't be raising taxes, then your only option is to cut, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's for you guys to.
Well, we're down to, it's either gonna be employees or the pool. And that, again, when you look at it from the standpoint of what we're foregoing for savings for equipment, cutting the pool will help greatly, but it's unpopular. It's been explored, but then it's gonna come down to people.
But if it's really unpopular, then people are going to have to be willing to pay for it too. I mean, because there's a way to solve that. They can agree to pay more. Can't have it both ways. So.
Well, unfortunately, the perception is always that there's a lot of fat in the system.
Yeah.
And
then it depends on what system you're talking about. There's plenty of fat in the federal government. There's plenty of fat in the state government. There's plenty of fat in some schools. But then when you get to some of the smaller school districts and some of the smaller villages and some of the smaller towns, there really isn't a lot of fat because there really isn't that much to those budgets.
there isn't. I mean, we'd be glad to show every citizen, but you're not going to see citizens come out and say, well, why do we need this thing? They will come out and say, we don't need it.
And like I said, getting the information to the public is quite sad. I mean, this would be right now probably, if you were our board, this is a well-attended meeting. A heavily attended meeting.
This is, I think, the most people I've ever had in Lomira.
So that's where we're at. So you're not getting that. I mean, maybe, I don't know, separating the school portion and our portion on the taxes in two separate bills to actually see, because like you said, there's so much larger bills. They get it, and this is, I'm paying so much in taxes, but that doesn't stay in Lomira. So. Well, I guess those are our struggles.
All right, well, I certainly hear you. I understand the problem. I don't know a good way to fix it. I don't think politically the appetite's going to be there to reduce the levy limits. Shared revenue doesn't really work for small villages. So, but I definitely understand the problem. And if we can figure out a way that the state constitution would allow us to treat smaller communities differently, the uniformity clause doesn't really do that very easily. That's what I think our caucus would like to do, is find ways to put more into towns and smaller villages and things. Because those larger cities have a lot of different ways to collect money.
Yes. And on a local level, we're surely not, we see these people every day. So it's not like we're going to come and abuse any cash that we get.
Right.
Or it's not like we're out here attempting to do crazy things with money. We're accountable for everything.
But you have a pretty big village board too, don't you?
7.
Yeah. So I've been there before, and I was always kind of amazed that seems like a lot for. I'm surprised you can get that many people to run in a relatively small village.
It's a struggle.
It's a surprise to us too.
Yeah. Because a lot of towns with 3-member boards have a hard time getting that many.
Well, I think our biggest informational find was the fact that the wheel tax is still, because again, that's one of our ways of having to do it and just implementing it.
At least with my bill it is. I don't know if anyone else will ever.
Well, I think that's the one locally we saw, and obviously it's the only one I think we're aware of. So.
Okay.
Any relief, because as I say, we're down to bare bones. And I don't know. I
Gotta get somebody else in that area north of here in the industrial park. Get some more tax base.
Yeah, we've been trying.
Yeah, I know, it's easier said than Mayville's been trying.
Well, yeah, there's We'd have to take another hour of your time to explain that debacle up there, but
We
There's
also
issues.
we don't own any land as well.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are municipalities all the way along 41 that own their land and can offer
Yeah.
very many
incentives and-
incentives.
Yeah, so you guys are in a good
I
spot.
think Beaver Dam sold some of their land for what, $1 an acre or
Yeah.
something for a while. Yeah, we don't own anything, and because we're so underfunded, we can't offer any, you know, our TIFs are just barely supporting themselves, much less enough to sneak in some money out of them to offer anything to anyone, so we're just hoping they want that highway frontage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a shame, because you're in some good prime spot here.
Well, the solar farm was also quite a shame too,
Well, that's a whole other issue, but yeah,
you know, but
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Sue, what do you
Yeah,
got
thank you.
next?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got another
Sue,
thing.
right, yeah.
I can talk for a whole hour.
Yeah. We'll let you ask something else, and then we'll see if Daryl wants to get his third topic in.
Okay, this is all about the voting, right? The 2020 election?
Okay?
Okay, what I recently, and I told you all about the fraud that was going on, and I had proof and all this stuff. So this bill came out recently, SB 214. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Not by its number, I don't have
Okay,
1,000
well-
numbers.
well,
Number.
it allowed-
SB 214.
Okay, it allowed early canvassing of absentee ballots and allows the clerks to scan them before the day
Oh,
before.
Monday count bill.
Why? What are you guys doing? Are you helping to cheat? And this is, okay, wait, hold on. Okay, the
Sorry,
Republicans,
I answered
the Republicans sponsored that bill. And then, okay, SB 214 was inserted into SB 946 under the Amendment 1. And that was brought in by Assembly Representative Peterson and Touchin through, I believe, Robin Voss. They're all Republicans. And this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. I don't care. I'm out. I do not vote Republican, Democrat anymore. I'm done with that.
Okay.
But SB 946 originally was a whistleblower protections bill for clerks and witnesses.
It was another elections bill, yeah?
Yeah, but like I said, Robin Voss and these other two inserted SB 214 in there, allowing early canvassing of absentee ballots. So, and now it's going to the Assembly Committee on Rules. I think that was just recently on the 10th of March, which was what, Thursday? Okay, so that's still going on. So that can't happen. You cannot count ballots before the day before the election. How are you going to make sure these ballots are secure? You're going to have your tabulators, your machines open at that time. And then are you going to shut them down? Are you going to bring them back up in the morning? That can't happen. You know, you guys have to get rid of the voting machines entirely. No drop boxes, no Zuckerberg money involved. You need to disband the WEC and bring it back to the legislature where it belongs before they brought it out to, what was it, the GAB, Government Accountability Board, and then it became the WEC. Well, you have to get rid of it. That's the only way I'm going to feel secure in voting from now on, because I don't have any trust at all. No trust at all in voting.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's what we've been trying to do with some of these bills. And some of the things you mentioned in your laundry list there are bills that we passed, like getting rid of the Zuckerberg bucks and that kind of stuff. But just to answer your question on the Monday vote count, because you asked quite a while ago what the heck we were doing there. So I would say that there's been some really strong themes from the last election of what people were pissed about, concerned about, upset about, whatever you want to call it. And one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one that I hear everywhere, heard it at my Beaver Dam session, office hours on Monday, is what people believe to be the vote dump in Milwaukee in the middle of the night. I hear that everywhere. Why are they, all of it, I go to bed and my guys win, I wake up and my guy lost, and they dump all these votes in the middle of the night in Milwaukee.
And Green Bay too.
So, yeah, that's another one. And the only reason that happens is because they cannot possibly count the number of absentee ballots they had fast enough to get them done at a reasonable time. So the answer, and this isn't a new answer, this bill's been around for a while, it's been around for several years, is to let them start counting those absentee ballots on Monday so they can get them done over the 2 days in a reasonable time so that we can have some results by 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, so we're not 5 a.m. And the reason the bill hasn't passed before is because of some of the same concerns that you cited about how do you protect that, how do you secure it, how do you know, that's been the challenge. So that's been the debate. What's more important, to not have the dump of votes in the middle of the night, which is just them totaling late into the night, or don't ever start early? So the bill put in safeguards about how they have to maintain those boxes, those machines. They can't tabulate them so that they can't leak, you know, so-and-so's winning or so-and-so's leading or something like that. There's all kinds of rules they have to follow. And if they follow those rules, they can start counting on Monday so that they can get that done and not have the 3 a.m., 5 a.m. totals that everyone seems to be so pissed about. So I think what we have to decide, and it's not going to happen this time, but it'll come back for debate next time, because the same thing's going to happen on this November election. The returns from Milwaukee are going to come in the middle of the night because they cannot physically count that many ballots fast enough. So people have to decide, you know, kind of pick your poison. Are you more pissed about the late night dump of votes, or are you more concerned that they're going to play shenanigans on Monday? And I think it's fair to be on either side of that. You can debate it. It's a double-edged sword. There's no perfect way to do this. Personally, before, I was opposed to starting the Monday count because I was more like you are, concerned about the accountability, how you keep it safe. I think when I looked at the safeguards in this bill, and because I've heard, like I said, so many people upset about the late night votes coming in.
Well, there's more than that. There's Green Bay, the emails.
Right. But it's the same thing.
Where,
it's a central count thing.
where it was connected to the internet. You can look on Wisconsin Spotlight. There's an article on there, and it's called Emails, Green Bay's Hidden Election Networks. And they have the emails. They have links to these emails saying that this Rubenstein guy had total access to the voting, and he had access to the hidden SSID number.
Questions about how they ran it and
Oh yeah, there was definite fraud there. There was fraud there. You can look on that
But
article.
then we're starting to dive into different issues. I'm just talking about the way to fix the late night pile of votes coming in is to start earlier. If we can't figure out a way to safely start earlier, then that's going to continue to happen. So I think folks have to decide what's more important to them. I'm not saying I have a magic answer. I'm just telling you what the issue is. The Monday count is not some hope to let more people cheat. It's far from it. It's trying to address the concern that a lot of people have about all those votes coming in the middle of the night. If there's a better way to do that, we don't know what it is. If someone's got the idea, we'd love to hear it. If it's, you know, if the fix is worse than the problem, maybe we shouldn't do it then. But I felt this current version of the bill, with the safeguards that were in place, would address that issue, and that was more important from what I was hearing from folks concerned about the late night vote totals coming in. So that's the answer on that. So, do you want to do your third thing, Daryl?
Just on the
Still
surplus,
remember it? Okay.
state surplus, anyway, I think it's a good idea if partisan bickering stopped and you gave, you know, I guess Ivor says $150 to, you know, it'd be a good thing for
Okay.
both of you to get together and, you know, both parties get together and give the people back. Price of gas isn't going down.
No?
Anyway, we need the money.
Yep.
Anyway,
Well, we'll definitely give it back. We did the largest tax cut in state history in this last budget, and the next one will do probably the same type of thing, so. But it'll be permanent. It won't be a one-time gimmick check of $150. It'll be permanent tax relief. And it will be, I'm confident, more than that for the average taxpayer.
okay, that's what we're shooting for, but, you know.
That's the goal, yep.
I mean, you know, you don't have to, you know, I don't know what else Evers has tied to it, but.
He had some other spending that he wanted to do, some other tax credits and a bunch of education spending, which there's just no appetite for that right now when there's so much money in schools with all this federal money right now. It's just, you know, the federal, the ESSER 1, 2, and 3, Sue was talking about the ESSER 3 stuff a little bit earlier ago. It's about $2.5 billion that's been dropped on schools in Wisconsin, just in Wisconsin.
And you have every special interest group lining up for that money.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know how they're gonna spend it all, because it's like triple what their normal increase would be on an average school. So it's just, you're gonna see a lot of, you know, new construction and new scoreboards and just a lot of new stuff. Because it's one-time money, so you're not gonna see them hire like a bunch of teachers with it, because it's not gonna necessarily stick around forever. But when you dump that amount of new cash, and some of it has strings. You talked about the 20% they gotta use for learning loss, so they'll bring in, you know, tutors or something and say that they're helping kids get caught up with that. And some places they probably are, and some places it'll do a good job. Other places it'll be new scoreboards and, you know, all this stuff. So.
Maybe they could pay off their $30 million in debt.
Yeah.
Could pay off some debt with it.
Exactly. We're straddled with 24.5 plus interest money for that referendum that
In
passed.
Mayville?
Yes. Yeah, we're stuck with that for I don't know how many years, 20 years or whatever. I don't know what Lomira is stuck with. I know they had a really, really high referendum that they had to keep going to referendum for operating costs. I don't know.
Sue, what's your last name?
Why?
Hmm?
Why?
Well, I want to be
Why
able
do
to
you-
register that you were here, and I know you're in our system. I know we have your information from coming other times, but I just don't remember what your last name is.
Oh, okay, it's Steele.
Steele.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Daryl, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You were starting to say
Anyway,
something.
it just seems, I don't know, I don't have all the numbers, but when you look at the state budget and everything, it just seems like the money's moving from the rural areas to the big cities. I mean, like, even in the Department of Transportation, you look at our roads and then you look at these monuments they're building around the Fox City, Green Bay, the Marquette interchange down in Madison. I mean, yeah, there are more people that live down there, but it just seems like as soon as you move to that town, you're 10, 15% richer because of what you all have built around you that you can use. And we're being stripped out here in the rural areas, and, you know, these villages here, well, they're gonna be just like the farms, churches, businesses. All of a sudden, they're either, the villages here, they're gonna have to start sharing. You know, so far they haven't done it with the high schools. I mean, they could have put a couple of high schools together and started working that way, but they each had to build bigger, the better. They got the state funds for it and went balls to the wall with it, you know.
More consolidation on some, that's probably the answer. And I understand why you said what you said about it looking like they get more in those bigger areas. But I think that isn't exactly true. The image of that is there because of the interstate system and that sort of thing, which is where those, you know, big interchanges are. But for a couple reasons. One, and I think you and I talked about this before when we were here in Lomira. You know, don't forget about those interstate systems and what they provide to the rural areas too, because everything you're buying at the Mayville Piggly Wiggly or the Lomira Piggly Wiggly is coming on a truck through that interstate system at some point, and you know, and anything that they're growing here in the town of Lomira is getting on a truck and going onto that interstate system at some point to be processed or market. So that helps everyone when we have a strong interstate road system. But the other thing I would say is the Towns Association, the Wisconsin Towns Association, said that this was the best towns budget in a generation, this last budget, because they got a bigger cut of the road money. And that's based on not people, but on miles. So they get about I think it's 32% of the municipal road money that gets split between towns and villages and cities. They get a good chunk of that, a bigger chunk of that. They also got more money on the PILT payments for government-owned land, so especially in, this is not as big around here, but it is in some areas. Leroy, Burnett, they've got the marsh taking up a lot of their area, so that's a lot of taxable land that's lost otherwise. So they get some payments from the state to help support their budget because of that huge state land or federal land that's owned. It's really big in northern Wisconsin. There's some townships that are almost all government owned and would have a hard time maintaining their basic road functions and things like that. So that was a big win for townships. I'm trying to remember, there were a couple others, but I know Mike Coles, I was with him at the Dodge County Towns quarterly meeting about 6 months ago, and he told them that it was the best town's budget in a generation. Now, did it solve all the problems and everything? Of course not. No budget does by itself, but it was some good steps in the right direction for rural Wisconsin.
I mean, you just see it in the rural areas though. I mean, there aren't a number of businesses in town that there used to be. And the bigger companies aren't moving out here.
Right. But part of that too is though because there aren't as many customers as there used to be. Families are smaller in these farms. Towns and villages are getting smaller.
Bed and breakfasts.
Yeah, just not as many people.
Yeah.
But, so.
Yeah. Our best and brightest are moving to the big cities.
Yeah, those millennials, they like to live in the big cities. I don't understand that. All my staff live in Madison, and I'm just like, well, why don't you move on to the suburbs? And like, no, we like the city. I'm like, oh, man, I don't even like having to drive down in here. I like to be able to go back out into Dodge County into civilization after I'm not leaving the capital.
Well, they see the money is going that way though. I mean, all they have to do is step out of their door in the morning and, wow. Then you step out of Lomira here, wow.
Yeah. Sue, was there anything that you needed to dive into yet before we call it a day? Or
one more thing. One more thing. Okay, I told you about how they're doing the mental health, they're going to be doing the mental health screening if they accept that ESSER 3 money.
Okay.
Okay, there's, I think they choose between Y-Screen, Panorama Ed, BEST, and DESA screening.
Okay.
Well, Mayville chose to do BEST, universal screening.
Okay.
And so I'm looking on there, on that website, and what it says that the kids do the screening online.
Okay.
Then they that information gets sent back to that vendor, and I think they're tied with CISA.
Okay.
That information gets sent back, and then in turn they send out like interventions, like mental health interventions for the children. And the teachers are the ones that are supposed to be doing these interventions. They're not qualified to do that. In my opinion, they're not qualified to do that. And I think everybody would agree that teachers do not have that qualification. I think only psychiatrists would have that qualification to do that. And by doing this mental health screening, it goes against the federal law. 1232, or it's 20 USC 1232H, protection of pupil rights. And it says, limits on survey analysis or evaluations. No student shall be required as part of any applicable program to submit to a survey analysis or evaluation that reveals information concerning, like your political affiliations or beliefs of the student or the parent, mental or psychological problems of the student or the student's family. Then it goes on, sex behavior, attitudes, illegal antisocial, self-incriminating or demeaning behavior, and there's other ones, religious practices, beliefs, and all that. So all that will be exposed by doing these mental health screenings. It's against the law. So why are they doing this? I think you should check into that for me, if you would.
This is another one of those, too, where you've got you're citing me a federal law and you're talking about the federal ESSER 3 funds that requires the study.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all federal, so you could check with Grothman's office about it, but it's all federal stuff that really, I don't have any say or input on or any real.
and like I've
information